It used to be called Humboldt, but they're trying to be more mainstream now, and they rebranded to doses. But this pen actually, here it is. It's all self-contained in here. There's no rig. You don't have to charge the thing. You don't have to buy little, add-on oils to screw on there. This is it. This is how it comes. You just suck, inhale, and it buzzes when the dose has been administered. So you know exactly what you're getting. Now, your inhalation varies from person to person. So is it exactly, precise to the milligram? Probably not. But relative to, say, one of these vape pens where you push the button and you inhale, and this oil is going to be highly concentrated with THC, much more concentrated than you would get if you just smoked a joint. If you just smoked a joint, it's about 25% THC. Most of these oils are like 75 to 80% THC. So you really want to watch the labels if you're going to do your vaping. There are a few low-dose pens on the market. I reviewed some of them on our site, but if you really want to start low and slow, this is kind of pricey because of the IP, but it is a very good way to control the dose. And it comes in, oh yes, thank you for mentioning that, yes. It comes in many, many doses. So they have a sleep, a sleep formula, a calm formula, a arousal formula. There's like 6 different ones, so.
The sleep one is particularly good if you wake up in the middle of the night. So there's 2 different problems with sleep. Obviously, you can't go to sleep and then you wake up and you can't stay asleep. So usually a tincture or something before going to bed would help with falling asleep. But the sleep pen is particularly good if you wake up and you need something quick to put you back to sleep. Questions?
When I went on my first exploration into a dispensary about a month ago, the first time I ever went near this stuff, I was asking for organic, and they had nothing. And the only thing like that they had was labeled clean. Could you comment on that?
I think that's because organic is a federal designation, and these products are not federally legal yet. So they can't get organic. You can't use the term organic, the official organic label, because that's a federal label, and these products are not federally legal. They're state legal.
But they use pesticides still.
Some of them use pesticides. The ones we sell don't use pesticides. So that's one of the things we're checking for. That's part of our process, is to check that. But no one can have the organic label. If they do, it's probably not accurate. So it doesn't mean they're not clean and they're not good for you. But you absolutely, I think someone mentioned before, you should check what's on your label. I think Eva mentioned you should check what's on your label, because there are products that use good, for example, if you're using a tincture, there can be things added to that tincture. Hopefully your tincture, one of the things we know about CBD is it's more bioavailable if it's consumed with fat. So your tincture should be in some kind of a fat, like MCT oil, coconut oil, olive oil. One of these has a grapeseed oil. So that's usually what it's in. It shouldn't be in anything else.
So if the label says nothing about no pesticides, should we stay away from that?
I would just look at the label closely and see what is in it.
And if you bought it from a licensed dispensary, in order to sell a product in a licensed dispensary, they all have to be lab tested. And if they test positive for pesticides, it fails the lab test. So that's one of the benefits for going to a licensed dispensary, is you'll get pesticide-free medication. If you go to an unlicensed and they just get them from their buddy who's a grower, those don't have to be lab tested. So who knows what exactly is in there. They are trying to start a certification called Clean Green Certified, which is kind of the cannabis industry's answer to organic, because they can't use that term organic. But if it's a lab-tested product, then it can't test positive for pesticides, or there's a minimal threshold that is okay. Yes?
I put a lot of value in research, and I know, Sue, you quote a lot of research been said that we need big studies, and there aren't many big studies because it's illegal.
Right.
But there are countries in which it's been legal for quite a while. I was wondering if they do any research, big studies, bigger studies there, or what? Because it's important to me.
Right, they do, and the research studies that we do have, that we go by, generally come out of Israel, Spain, and Canada. And now that last year Canada legalized cannabis federally, we're going to see a lot more research studies coming out of Canada. These studies take years, usually, to get the results published. But I think there are some out there, and there's going to be more and more. Now that CBD from hemp is no longer a Schedule I in this country, it's going to open up the doors for research in this country as well.
I was just going to say, I think we mentioned this before, but some of the ways that we know how things work right now is just by anecdotal evidence. So there are tracking apps and places that collect basically consumer information. So if 1,000 people try something, a certain product or a certain strain of marijuana, and 980 of them have the same effect, then we can say we have a good sense that that works for this. So in the absence of that research being available yet, we're using some of this basically crowdsourced information to help us make recommendations about what's working and what isn't. And the more people that input their information into those apps and things, the more we know.
What apps are they?
There's one called Habu Health that's on the market only in
How do you
Oregon.
spell that?
HABU. It's only on the market in Oregon right now. But some of the tracking apps, which I can't remember the names of them, there's 2 or 3 of them that they're created so that you can personally track what you tried and what it did for you. And Sue's a big advocate of this, obviously. If you're trying something new, just write it down. What am I taking? How much did I take? And how did I feel? And do that for 5 days and then try something else. So all those apps that help you collect that information are also anonymously aggregating that information and telling us that, again, 980 out of 1,000 people use this marijuana strain and that they all fell asleep. Great. I wanted to know that because there's a gazillion different strains and I need to know which one I can use for sleep. So that's what we have in the short term, and it can be very, very helpful information to guide us.
Yep, the question is using CBD or cannabis for anxiety for teenagers. It's interesting that our medical establishment is not worried about putting a kid on Prozac, yet they're worried about having them use this natural plant to treat anxiety. Personally, I have a 18-year-old who has ADD and anxiety, and he hates the way his ADD medicine makes him feel. And so we compromised and had him try CBD. Actually, it's the green formula, 15 milligram capsule. And he's kind of a contrarian, so nothing usually works for him. But he did say that he felt that he could focus better because his anxiety wasn't getting the best of him. So the CBD was helping bring down the anxiety, which allowed him to kind of remind himself to pay attention to what he was, doing in school. It didn't focus him like a laser like the Concerta did, but it also didn't have the side effects that he hated with the Concerta. Heart racing, other things he couldn't describe, but people say that when you come off of the medicine, after it peaks and it comes down, you don't feel good when it is getting out of your system. So all of those things he didn't experience on the CBD. I think it's pretty effective. I know somebody who has a son who has autism and lots of anxiety wholeheartedly. She gave it another try, and she even tried the dosist vaporizer on her older son. She had mentioned that it comes in different formulas, and the Calm formula for anxiety is 10 parts CBD, 1 part THC. I went a bit on that one. And it has so much CBD that you don't really have to worry about getting high, but this mother used it on her autistic teenager, and she said that's the only thing that gets him from running around and flapping his arms, and just kind of calms him down for a couple hours. Well, CBD for as medical cannabis with a letter of recommendation. If you're 18 and over, you can get one of those letters of recommendation from a doctor. Hemp CBD is not really under that purview, and doctors are still iffy about it just because they're not, now that it's not Schedule 1, they should become a little bit more comfortable. I think they're just not as well informed of it, so they just like to manage their risk by saying no. Right.
CBD is legal from hemp. CBD from hemp is legal for anyone of any age. From what I understand, it's really up to the store owner whether they'll sell it to you or not, but there's not a law that says if you're under 18 you cannot purchase CBD.
I also just, and I can connect you, but just want to give a shout out to my friend Tracy Ryan. She runs a company called Canna Kids, and they have cannabis nurses on staff also that will help evaluate the child's issues. They also help parents to navigate some of these legal issues. Some of the case studies, from kids that have come to her organization, it's primarily her entire organization is focused on helping children. Her daughter, she had personal experience with her daughter. Her daughter had a tumor, and they used cannabis in conjunction with traditional therapies, and saw a dramatic reduction. And her daughter was supposed to go blind and has retained her eyesight. And it's an amazing story. But she's helped a lot of kids, and she speaks, all over the country about not only CBD but also moderate doses of THC to help various medical conditions. So.
The one that you may have heard of is seizures. So the very first patented pharmaceutical using CBD called Epidiolex was approved last year specifically for seizures. So kind of what I think kind of broke this whole thing open was a story of a young girl named Charlotte who was having seizures, who had to move to Colorado to do something which is now called Charlotte's Web. Sanjay Gupta did a whole series on it called Weed on CNN that tells the story. So there's definitely some really specific things that CBD can do for children, and again, we don't see any harm with it. So it's good to know. Anything else?
I have a question.
I have a couple questions. One is for you. I know some strains or autoimmune related illnesses that it was beneficial. So I wanted to know more about that. How it dissects no idea. 0 killer cells against bacteria and viruses. So I am curious if there's been any information about how cannabinoids and CBD in particular is good for people with rare autoimmune conditions
Okay.
that they've avoided.
The question is, how does CBD or other cannabis medicine help with autoimmune conditions of all types, I'll say. Very rare ones especially. Well, what we know is that with our cannabinoid receptors, the CB1 receptors are mainly found in the brain and central nervous system. CB2 receptors are mainly found on cells of the immune system. So your immune cells have CB2 receptors. And anything with a CB1 or CB2 receptor is going to be influenced by cannabinoids. So as long as it has a receptor, they've even found some cancer tumor cells have these receptors on them. So the tumor cells will then be influenced by cannabis. So since our immune system has cannabinoid receptors, well, our own body makes cannabinoids, which can act on them. But sometimes people's bodies can't produce either enough of the endogenous cannabinoids, so they get a boost from these plant cannabinoids. And that fills that gap. Or maybe your body reabsorbs the cannabinoids too quickly, or you don't have enough receptors for the amount that your body can make. So the plant cannabinoids, and I would say probably starting with CBD, since CBD works effectively with the CB2 receptors, would be a way to do it. For autoimmune conditions, I also think you need to take kind of a multi-dimensional approach, and diet is a big one, because a leaky gut and a gut that's out of balance, if the gut bacteria are out of balance, they're going to work against you. Whereas if you get them in balance, they can do amazing things to work for you. And that's one thing that I saw firsthand with my mom. Once she came to live with me, I was in full control of everything. And so I put her on a strict anti-inflammatory diet and saw great benefits. I think the cannabis play was one part of the puzzle, and I think the diet was another part of the puzzle. So I don't think there's one quick, simple solution. I think it's a little bit multidimensional.
Gotta ask anyway.
Right, but the more of these things you start incorporating and you start feeling better and maybe feeling some benefit, it just once it becomes a routine, it just gets easier.
And the other question was, one of the challenges that I found when it comes to finding the correct edible and finding edibles at a price that can be afforded on a regular basis when you're dealing with a chronic condition where you need regular doses throughout the day.
Yeah.
It also comes with food allergies like celiacs, another autoimmune condition. And so finding edibles that are labeled for their allergens is hard.
It's hard.
So is there anything that is being done on a legislative level for making edibles, follow along food standards of labeling allergens?
I think that's coming along the pike. It's such a new industry. They're tripping over themselves with all these new regulations. But one thing we haven't talked about today, which I'm a big proponent of and I'm going to plug, is growing your own and juicing raw cannabis. They've been finding more and more benefit to that. They thought just the real hippies did it. And now there's research behind it that it works. And there's a Dr. Courtney who studies this. And when the plant is in its green, raw form, it doesn't have THC and CBD. It has the acidic version, THCA and CBDA. Both are not, well, CBD is not psychoactive, but THCA is not psychoactive. Only when it's heated and decarboxylated does it convert to THC and become psychoactive. So, getting my hands on some seeds, I planted some in my garden since I like to garden, and I thought this would be an interesting experiment. Let's see what happens. It grows pretty easily, like a weed. And I didn't know enough to separate the males and the female plants because I just cared about the leaves. And we were putting it in my mom's smoothies, and it was just kind of part of her wellness. It's hard to tell if it was from that or all the other stuff we were giving her, but a lot of people do only juicing of the leaves. And they say it takes between like 10 and 15 to 15 or more leaves per day per smoothie to get the effect. If your plant is a female and it has flowers, 1 to 2 flowers would have the same amount of cannabinoids as about 15 or 20 leaves, because the flowers are where the oil is. Now when you look at a plant, they're lovely plants to look at. And once they flower, they look like they're dusted with sugar crystals. And those sugar crystals are little balls of oil, of resin, that the plant produces to attract pollen to make seeds. But if you remove the male plants, there's no pollen to be had, so they produce more and more of this resin to get any little bit of pollen that might be floating around, and to detract bugs, although the caterpillars weren't detracted from mine. And that's where the medicine is, so it becomes more concentrated with medicine. So the strain I had was a THC strain, probably hardly any CBD, but since it had THCA in the form I was using it, it's anti-inflammatory, anti-anxiety, pain relieving, and there's not enough studies to show exactly what it does, but one of Dr. Courtney's patients is able to manage 2 or 3 autoimmune conditions, lupus and juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which now she's not juvenile, so I guess it's just regular rheumatoid arthritis. She's able to keep those under control just by juicing. And I saw a video of her, she was pregnant while she was juicing, and she kept reiterating, it doesn't make you high, it's not psychoactive, it's like juicing kale. So I think we're gonna start finding out that it's probably a new superfood. They just don't have the information out there. And if you grow it yourself, you know it's clean, pesticide free. I didn't even use Miracle Grow on it, I just watered it. Yeah. Good old fashioned water and sunshine.
CBD is the new kale. You heard it here first. Elena, you had one question.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make this our last
Oh, yeah.
question.
I'll sit repeat it. I have a customer that can't be here tonight. She's a massage therapist. And the spa or the company she works for is having all the therapists use a CBD cream with the massages. So her question, she has a couple questions. One question is, if it's on her hands and through a 1 hour massage, and she's doing, has one appointment after the other, so she's going to be in contact with this all day,
Awesome.
possibly. She just wants to know if it could be too much or if there's any adverse effects. And then the other question was, and this, in fact, I asked this question because we were kind of chatting about it, using the stick on the problem areas before she starts the massage, so by the time she gets to that part of the person's body, it's already kind of activated and relaxed those muscles. If that's what I suggested to her.
Yes, absolutely. She's probably going to feel great. I read something the other day that the only time they have seen any negative effect with CBD is when you reach 1,000 milligrams. So that's like, this entire bottle is 750 milligrams. And the only effect actually was really on the stomach. It wasn't like, it's probably from the oil. So there is no upper dose, so I don't think she's going to have any problem. I think she's going to feel great at the end of the day, and I don't see why you wouldn't put it on the affected areas before and just let you do your thing on your laundry.
Yeah.
That would be my answer.
Yeah.
I think rubbing it in really gets penetrate a little bit better. But I've taken my own cannabis balm to my masseuse.
Yeah.
The last question that I remember she asked me is it better to do it over the whole body because it seems like you'd be diluting it rather than using it on specific areas and letting it soak in first. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you think this would be more effective just doing the spots rather than spread out over the whole body?
Well, it's certainly going to help you wherever you put it. So if you only have a certain amount and you have areas you want to treat, then yes, I would treat those areas. But if you have enough to do the whole body, it's going to feel great on the whole body. It's going to get expensive. I think that's probably the biggest downside to cBD right now. It's expensive. It's expensive. So I recognize that, and you mentioned it, especially if you need it daily. It can get up there, but I just think about, if you spend $4.50 every day on a coffee. Are you willing to spend $150 on your CBD capsule? So, and you mentioned drinking. The other thing is drinking. I mean, how much do you spend on a glass of wine versus a $1 mint, which in my, I think
25.
I think this, the analogy of this being equivalent to one drink, so 2.5 milligrams of THC, one drink, and 5 milligrams, about 2 drinks. I think that is exactly right. That's exactly how I explain it to people. It's like arriving at the party with 2 drinks in you already, so you're kind of already where everybody else is, and then maybe you have 1 drink instead of 3 or 4. And guess what? You feel a lot better the next day when you wake up and you only have 1 alcoholic beverage in you instead of 3. You had a great time, but you feel great the next day.
I'm like, or take one of these tinctures, mix it with a little margarita mix. You have a salted rim, people think you're drinking margarita. I'm all about discreet, low dosing, portable, consistency, titrate up and down, and I do think there's this we talked about this, there's this circle of people that are very pro-marijuana for recreational use, right? And the circle of people that are really pro-marijuana for medical, like serious medical conditions, right? And I never saw myself in necessarily either one of those buckets, right? But I think that now they go together, they intersect, and there's this section there that's this new cannabis consumer where you're seeing, yeah, this is wellness, this is a great supplement for me, and you can dial it up a little bit more and go a little recreational without going way recreational, right? So we don't have to, we don't need to smoke like the whole gram, or I don't even know how it's sold really. That would be a lot. We don't need to smoke the whole gram. But but there is this intersection, and bringing people into looking at it as a replacement to prescription medication, SSRIs, particularly sedatives like Xanax and Ambien, which have really crazy, well-documented side effects. And then as a substitute to alcohol, which is a subject for another day.
I wanted to thank Elena for inviting us here, and thank my fellow panelists for being here, and thank you all for joining us tonight.
Also, for those of you who stayed, I do have some mints if you want to take one with you out. We'll be happy to give you one up here in the front. And thanks for coming. I have them after
I love this.
Kristie as well. She's Thai, the guy in Maccaulay.
Yeah.
I know Michael spent a lot of time with them, so I know that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, how's Michael doing?
Good.
Good. Does he date right?
No, he doesn't. He hasn't for about 3 years. 2 years, 3 years, something like that. I wish he still was, but because I love her, she's wonderful. But I like his new girlfriend too, so we'll see. They're still young, so who knows?
Yeah, I know. Well, I told Macaulay he met his wife in high school, Haley Beretta. And I just, and you know, she didn't go to any of the regular schools. And he was like, Mom, she's not going to school, and I don't know what to do when I go to Paris. And I said, I just hope, honestly, that he comes back. She ended up going to art center and got into St. Mark's fashion school.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Oh yeah, I'm like, because I always knew that, you know, I was like, forget about the regular whatever, you know, she's an artist, and now she's designing. I mean,
She's going to be big time when she does that stuff.
oh yeah,
That's awesome.
she's already designing like all sorts of things.
How cool is that? That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I hope she comes back.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Likewise.
Good to see you.